My name is Jason Walsh. I'm a trainer here in West Hollywood, California at my studio Rise Movement, and I train Pedro Pascal, among others, prepping them and getting them ready for their movie projects.
4 astronauts go up into space and come back forever changed.
At some point in the past decade, Hollywood came down with a serious case of Pascal fever. After his breakout role in HBO's Game of Thrones, job offers started rolling in that turned him into a prolific A-lister. Pascal met Walsh while the trainer was working with Matt Damon during production on the 2016 film The Great Wall, and they've worked out together ever since.
We bonded quickly and had a lot of commonalities and a lot of good, interesting conversations and a lot of laughing, and I don't know, it just seemed to work.
Fantastic Four First Steps posed a unique challenge for Pascal and Walsh. Even though Mr. Fantastic's body can bend and stretch like rubber, he still has to look like the type of person who can believably climb a skyscraper. He's the leader of his reality's one and only superhero team, and he has to look the part.
And then Mr. Fantastic's like whipping his arms around, and most of that stuff's CGI, but you're still having to move and do these cool stunts and stuff.
Pascal was in great physical condition when he played the general-turned-gladiator Acacius in Gladiator 2 months before production on First Steps began. That is, until he suffered a fall, dislocating his shoulder and tearing a muscle. Not wanting to have to back out of the MCU, Pascal got Walsh to help him get back into good enough shape to fight Galactus.
He came to me and he said, listen, I don't necessarily have to have surgery. They said, they recommend it, and I have all these projects coming up. Can it be done? And I said, I don't know, but I think we can really give it a good shot. With him, we had, at least a year. I think it was a year ahead of time. And that's what gave me kind of the hope, is I knew that we'd be able to sit down and put this piece together as a jigsaw puzzle. He's like Humpty Dumpty, right?
Pascal was feeling a bit discouraged, but Walsh got him to agree to try it out. As the actor made his way through much of the 2024 award show circuits with his arm in a sling, he and Walsh worked behind the scenes to regain mobility and work through the pain.
It was my job to really get to him and convince him we can actually put this body back together. The chassis off, the frame's bent. If you think of the analogy of with like a race car or something, so if the frame's messed up, nothing really performs like it's supposed to. We really had to start bare minimum.
As is the case with most elements of movie making, physical training can't be finished overnight. The process of putting Pascal back together again took place over a period of months.
It's those little tiny moments like that you're just building. It's so tedious and it takes such a long time. And sometimes there's setbacks and there's days where you don't feel good, or the pain is reset or something like that. And I just tell him it's part of the natural process of progression and really building something beautiful.
In the end, Pascal decided to forego having corrective shoulder surgery. It made it so he was able to take part in the MCU, but it also had some lasting consequences.
Dislocated clavicle, fractured scapula, and he had some major tendon issues. And eventually these things healed, probably not correctly, but they did end up calcifying and healing to a point where it gave us the stability to really work what we had. We had enough time to work on repairing the body, recovering, repair, recover, confidence and movements, and then build into the strength training.
We are going to find a solution. We are going to make it right.
Marvel Studios has a reputation for being incredibly tight-lipped about their movies, to the point that their actors sometimes feel left in the dark. Despite the MCU's veil of secrecy, though, Walsh revealed that he was fully aware of Pascal's central role in Fantastic Four from the beginning.
As far as my awareness with projects, it's essential that I know exactly what's going on. So that means, pre-production, I'm talking to the director, what their expectations are, producers, stunt coordinators, and we all get, conference calls and get going. And then I got to meet with the client. I need to assess where they're at and what, if their expectations are way the hell out here, somehow I've got to sit down and figure out the formula, what that formula is going to look like.
You might expect a Mr. Fantastic-themed workout to include a whole lot of yoga and an emphasis on flexibility, but that wasn't the case for Pascal. He had to start from scratch rather than jump straight into more intense exercises.
To be completely honest, when it came to training for that specific character, I didn't think about it one time. It was like I just wanted to rebuild Pedro and give him that ability. We had to reinforce general movement patterns, right? And then just adding new elements to those basics, whether that's volume, sets, tempos, some different stresses, and you really had to work on the fundamentals.
Even though Pascal's regimen was much more simple than it would have been had he not injured his shoulder, Marvel's expectations of him were still the same. Thankfully, Walsh got him into good enough shape that he was able to put on a harness and swing his way through a retro-futuristic New York City.
He had to run, he had to do wire work, he had to do a lot of these things that his body a year prior, he wouldn't have been able to do this movie. So it was really kind of just working the Tin Man to where he can move and greasing those joints and making sure everything's firing and regaining confidence.
Of course, the road to recovery and the MCU involves more than just time in the gym. Even though Mr. Fantastic isn't the most swole superhero, he's famously lean and limber. Walsh helped Pascal with a custom diet plan, and it yielded impressive results.
The diet was big. We took 25 pounds off of him, and that really started the chain reaction. Then he was like, put it on pants that he wore in the second season of Last of Us. There's a gap this much between where he's pulling. He's like, what the?
So what's the secret ingredient? Walsh credited much of his client's successful transformation to small batch protein supplements produced by his company Rise 311.
We created Rise 311 protein, and I made it for my clients. It's a plant-based protein that's easily digested. It's a perfect PDCAT score of 1.0.
With a combination of a steady workout regimen, a balanced diet, and plenty of protein, Pascal was able to get into the physical condition that being a superhero calls for. That being said, the lasting effects of Walsh's work with Pascal extend far beyond the MCU.
You're going to see that on screen. You're going to see the confidence in the Vanity Fair photo shoot. You're going to see these things kind of come to life, which is really the biggest gift. It makes everybody happy. It makes him happy. It makes me happy as his trainer. And it's a beautiful thing to watch.
There was an extra consideration that Walsh had to make: his age. As good as he looks, he's still subject to the passage of time. And as Walsh points out, there are some physical realities that can't be avoided. While younger MCU actors like Tom Holland and Joseph Quinn might have an easier time staying in shape, doing so in middle age requires more maintenance.
As you get older, Pedro's 50 years old, it's more important to make sure that you're getting all of these, nutrients, especially protein, to not only maintain. So if he's working really hard, you want to make sure that you're holding on to that protein or to that muscle. Someone in their 20s, they're at the peak with hormones and regulation and that kind of stuff, that you got everything working for you. I used to be able to walk into a gym and, leave and put on muscle, and I just by looking at the weights, and as I'm turning 50 this year, there's definitely some changes. There's definitely some difference. We have a lot more responsibility, a lot more stress in our life.
According to Walsh, the best way to stay in shape when you're older is to get in shape when you're younger. Otherwise, it's much more of a challenge to get back on track.
If you don't have everything working for you, it really works against you as you get older. When you're younger, it doesn't really have such an effect, it will.
There's one final factor that allowed Walsh to be so helpful in Pascal's recovery: friendship. Walsh wasn't just trying to work with the actor to earn a paycheck. Instead, he genuinely cared about getting his pal ready for a life-changing job.
I've known Pedro since 2014. I feel lucky to have him in my life. He's been a great friend. He's just the salt of the earth. He's just one of those guys that's just a beautiful person inside and out, and supportive and empathetic and compassionate. And I know there's a lot of questions online about, is he as great as he seems he is? And the answer is yeah. You know what? I think that anybody that stands up for what they believe in and who has that sort of compassion for humans, it's nice. It's a nice relief to be around people like that, and gives you kind of faith in humanity,
So what is it actually like to work out with Pascal? According to Walsh, you might not do much working out at all.
And when he walks in the room, things just change. The energy's different, and people are laughing, carry on, and procrastinating in the training. He's good at getting other people to not train. The trainer, we're just standing there, we're just like waiting, and while he carries on and gets everybody else to procrastinate. Maybe that's why he's so well loved here at the studio.
The process has been long and difficult, but it's also been incredibly rewarding for both Pascal and Walsh. They'll keep working together as Pascal continues his tenure in the MCU, but for now, they can take a moment to appreciate Fantastic Four's theatrical release and the victory that it represents.
It's fun. It's what we do, we work on these projects, and you never know, and there's a lot of stress, and there's a lot of unknowns, and you get through it, and you're like, cool, we did it, man. We made it.